I was born when the Depression started, and we didn't have anything, And I didn't really think about being poor, but we were, everybody was poor. This is to get it lined up so that your center is, and I've already calibrated my machine so that it'll find the center in this. I didn't get a good start in school because the first teacher I had was he was a band teacher, and we didn't have school half the time. Okay, I didn't get to take sewing or anything when I was in high school because we didn't have anything like that. So then I started going with my husband. There we go. I think I graduated in June and I got married in August. I started taking sewing classes and I became a seamstress. I made all my own clothes, and then I started making clothing for people. In '81, I got into quilting. It just kind of worked into, I love to create something that was my own. This was about one of the first that I ever did. I used my own color sense and fabrics, and I used all of my own threads. I entered some quilts into the state fair. I entered a quilt, it was my first applique quilt, and I ended up getting grand champion that year. The lady that had been winning it all the time, I beat her. And so I thought, gosh, this is kind of nice, and then I'd get a little money for it. And then I started teaching in my home. What I learned, I taught. So I would take my ideas from all kinds of things. And it just evolved all through the years that I guess there was a strive to do something better all the time and to learn new techniques. This one year, we had a quilt that a man had entered in the show that was made in 1856 by his grandmother or one of his grandmothers. And when I think of a woman in 1856 doing all of those things by hand and no more lights and stuff she had, and it was a beautiful quilt, I thought, I got to reproduce that. So it took me 3 years to make that quilt. And then I entered it in quite a few different shows. My fantasy that's in the National Quilt Museum and Golden Glow, I sent them to enough shows that I won about $17,000 with each one of them.
So you want to take that side? What should we do here?
This was actually a Dover design, and I enlarged it and put it on my design wall. I've done a fourth of the quilt. There was a design that I made my own pattern. And all of this is fabrics from my stash, except the one in the center. I bought 2 yards of that fabric, not knowing what I was going to do with it. And so then I took all the colors that was in my stash and picked them out and put this together.
I think what's important about what Millie shows us is that someone who is very unassuming or might fit in a box of a family wife, a farmer's wife, who makes quilts, kind of blows that impression out of the water. So these are pieces of art, and you always intended them. I remember you telling me this. You always intended them to be works of art that were to hang on the wall. And so it's just another sort of facet of the tradition of quilting that exists across our country. And that history is very deep, from social movements to visual information to fine art.
Here's the Wi-Fi. Sometimes I send it from my computer over here to the Wi-Fi. I had never touched a computer. I didn't know a thing about one. But I wanted to learn. I wanted to see if I wanted one. And so I took 5 classes at Spoon River College. Here is all the different designs in here. And then I decided I wanted a computer. And then all the machines now are computerized. I want to keep learning. It's always been a challenge me, I guess, to be able to do this and to do that. I don't have anybody quilt any of these quilts. I want to quilt all myself. I want to be able to say I've always quilted all my quilts. Quilting is something that you need, you want to enjoy. And so, if you want to learn to quilt, the best thing I think would do to be to go take a beginner quilting class and see if it works. Don't think you have to keep up with the next person. Do whatever you feel comfortable in. My husband and I both had very active lives. We snowmobiled. My husband flew. My husband flew me different places. When I won a prize over Bloomington, Indiana, he flew me over there one day to see my quilt. He flew me up to Holland, Michigan one time to teach a class and do a trunk show. We incorporated what he loved to do and what I loved to do. Quilting is therapy, and I know after my husband died, I knew what I had to do. I knew before he died that, I had to go ahead and take care of myself. Because then my son was in the nursing home and I had to go ahead and help him the rest of his life, which is a very difficult time. But I could go home, get my sewing machine out, and sew. And you go in and you forget about all your problems. I'm 95 and I exercise every day. I get up on the floor every morning. I exercise on the floor. Then I get up. I can get up in the middle of the floor every day. A lot of people can't at my age. I keep my mind busy. I don't dwell on not being able to do this or do that. And that's what life's all about.